Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen podcast by Eastman's. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Hey guys, welcome to episode, I think we're on episode 33 or 34 now. I've kind of lost track. I'm not a huge numbers guy. Ryan and I were just laughing. My guest today is Ryan Reynolds with Apex Waterfowling. And no, we're not going to dwell on if the border is opening or closing. We're going to have a conversation about duck and goose hunting and wing shooting in general, and how Ryan got into the game, how he does what he does. Ryan runs Apex Waterfowling, like I said, and that is a top-notch, top-tier outfit out of Bigger, Saskatchewan. But Ryan, welcome to the show, man. And I believe you are in a little town in southern Ontario that's famous for, obviously you, but Avril Lavigne.
Yo, hey, first of all, thanks for having me. And second of all, yes, it is actually famous for both of us, for the record.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm sitting in Ontario right now waiting to get back to Saskatchewan for the hunting season. So
Cool. Yeah, we had a phone call earlier, and I promised you we wouldn't talk much about the border because it's up in the air. You know, at this point, there's not a definitive answer.
yeah, I mean, that, unfortunately enough, is the Coles Notes version of it. There's not a definitive answer. Things are definitely moving in the right direction. There's been stuff that's changed just in the last 2 days, actually, for Canadian residents that have been vaccinated, double vaccinated. We can now cross and come back without having to do our 14-day quarantine and the whole hotel stay that everybody's reading about and worried about. So they've got rid of that for Canadian residents, which, I mean, I'm not a politician and I don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, the next step would be that if we can enter our country that way, I mean, I think the next step would be that everybody's going to enter our country that way. So we're heading in the right direction, and it looks like there's going to be enough grace period between these changes and hunting season to be able to be ready to go. It's the way that everything's looking, but that's there is a certain aspect or level of fingers crossed, knock on wood with those comments. So here's hoping, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, I hope it all works out obviously for outfitters like yourself. You know, the whole outdoor space has been affected by that. From waterfowl to big game to fishing. You know, we talked earlier, and like I said, I don't want to dwell on it. It is what it is.
No, I don't mind.
Ad nauseum, but it's one of those things that it's a topic people want to know. So
yeah, it's the hot topic right now. I mean, you know, that outdoor industry, there's so many aspects of it that it affects. You know, you had spring bear outfitters and you've got summer fish camps. That, you know, COVID's only been a year and change. It might as well be 2 full years for those spring bear guys in the summer fish camps, right? They're on their second season, either already lost or in the middle of losing. The big game guys and, you know, waterfowl guys like myself, you know, we're creeping up on the second year. We're still in the fingers crossed zone, but there's a lot of guys, man, that are, you know, they're right in the middle of 2 full seasons.
Right.
So I mean, it's time to move here.
yeah, no, I completely agree. I had an opportunity to talk with Clay Lancaster, who's a big game outfitter, and he did a little bit for Eastman's for us for our sheep issue. Had a really cool article in there, and he was literally, when I talked to him about doing the article, he's like, "Yeah, I'd love to. I'm stuck in a hotel room in, I think he was in Calgary at the time."
Yeah.
And same deal. But it is what it is, and hopefully everything opens up and you guys can start guiding hunters again, you know.
Honestly, see all of our friends that we haven't seen in over almost 2 years. That's the crazy part. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
there's the whole business aspect to it, but then you've got these guys that, you know, you're used to seeing once or twice a year, and you've seen them for the last, you know, 10, 15, 18 years, and now all of a sudden, you know, texts and phone calls are pretty much all we got. So, as much as it's going to be good to get back to hosting people and having full camps, it's going to be just as awesome to see lifelong friends, really, at the end of the day.
I think, I think that's probably part of, well, and that dovetails perfectly into kind of where I wanted to go with this. Ramsey Russell was on the podcast, and he recommended having you on as a guest. And like I said earlier, I really appreciate you jumping on with me. But he said something that you and I touched on in our phone conversation, that waterfowl isn't about ducks and geese. It's about waterfowl hunting. I'm sorry, wing shooting. It's not about the birds. It's not about necessarily the gear. It's about the relationships. It's about the people and the stories that come from those people and relationships. Man, I bet you have amassed an incredible library of stories. And like you said, you have friends that you get to see or used to.
Well, yeah, that's it, right? I mean, and you nailed it on the head there. It's funny because like I'll go for a scouting mission, I'll take my turn in the truck or whatever for a morning or an afternoon type deal and go on a scouting mission. And as I cover, a certain area, I'll drive by a field and it's like, oh yeah, I was with so-and-so in this field and the weather was this and we set up here and this is how the birds worked, or, oh, we smashed them there, or, oh, we struggled with them, whatever. But it's all those stories. It's not the, oh, well, we got this many this day and boy, they didn't see us coming. It's the stories, the camaraderie. It's the, every 3 to 6 days when somebody new walks through the camp, I've got guys that I've literally hunted with for 15 years and are legitimate friends with, go on boys fishing trips in the winter with, get together in the summer, the families, that kind of stuff, so the stories, you might see each other once a year, but, as soon as the cold beverages start flowing, there's always the, the top 10 stories that get rekindled, right? So it's the camaraderie of it. And that's the part that I think for me personally in my waterfowl career, that's the part that has not gotten old, can't see it getting old. That's just, it's a brotherhood, really, not to be corny and cheesy, but, as you build a clientele list, these guys, you feel guilty using the word client because technically on a business sense, that's what they are, but they're friends, they're family, you have group chats with them, not even about their trip or their dates or anything like that, just legitimate friendships formed.
No, I can see that. It's I have some pretty good friends who run waterfowl outfits here in the States, and they say the same things, and I've helped out over the last couple of years here with Wingmen, been fortunate to jump in a blind with them and do some filming or get some photos, or, hey, I need a dog today. Can you and Mackinac come out and help out, or whatever. And it's fun. But that's exactly what I've noticed is that it's the same clients almost year in and year out. And after a couple times out with them, you get to realize these aren't clients, like you said. These are friends. These are friends
100%.
who are...
Yeah. 100%. I mean, you take, I'm fortunate. I've been doing this 18 going into 19 years now, I guess it is, 19 seasons. Wow. And, I'm fortunate that I've built up the clientele base to the point where when my season ends, we sit at about, you might as well call it 85 to 90% booked at the end of every season from repeat guys.
That's
Wildly fortunate. But I mean, it's business sense, it's fantastic. That's what you strive for. But more so, it's like, it's awesome. I get to hang out with these boys again next year. It might as well be our yearly trip that they just happen to come to me for. So it's
that's
pretty
cool.
Pretty legit. Yeah.
That's odd. Did you see that coming 18, 19, however many years ago it was when you started doing this? Because you said you're like, you told me, when you started this, it's like, I'm going to chase this dream, and believing in the idea that you can do anything you want in this life if you're willing to go get it and work hard.
100%.
Did you see that coming?
No, not at all. In my wildest dreams, I wouldn't have done anything but dream about how this has turned out. Like I told you in our phone conversation when we basically met there the other day, I come from a tiny little
Right.
town, man. Like, we come from a great family, but not a lot of backing that way. So it was, hey, if you want something, you have to go get it. And, everybody looks at it and like, oh, this guy's been doing this for 18, 19 years. Oh, cakewalk. Well, in 18, 19 years, there's more peaks and valleys than a guy could sit here and list in 45 minutes or an hour or whatever we got here. I don't think I could get through it with you today.
I bet.
But if you what's worked for me personally, and I mean, I'm not about to write a book on how to do it or anything like that, but what's worked for me is literally set a goal, set a bar, and don't let yourself come underneath that bar. When I started running trips, there was a bar set. This is what we're going to aim for. We're going to dot the I's, cross the T's, all that kind of stuff. And let the cards roll out. You put out the fires as they come up, and roll with it from there. But I mean, it's all about standards, and it's all about not giving up, because I mean, when you forget hunting waterfowl for 130, 140 days a year, that's going to kick the snot out of you to begin with. But then when you add all the background logistics of, guests needing this and guests needing that and changing this last minute or flights being moved and, staffing and weather and farmers and everything else, man, everything can go wrong. But when the year ends, if you've achieved that bar not being lowered that you set, then it's a win. And then you can take the
Right.
you take the handful of things that you might want to improve on, make those improvements, and next year all of a sudden becomes better. So then, from the team that I've been lucky enough to put together over the years, to the people that I've met, it all happened really. Like when I started building a brand new lodge in the Saskatchewan operation. I bought the Saskatchewan operation 3 years ago now, I guess it is. 4 years ago I bought the Saskatchewan operation, because my operation in Ontario had basically got to the point where I needed to expand. I was full for the season. I was full for clients. I had gone to Saskatchewan guiding for other guys since I was 19 years old, and wanted to expand the business. So I looked into something that was available out there. When I bought it, it was like, oh, I would have never dreamed that I'd actually own an operation out here. Wow, this is amazing, right? And then when I got to the point where I had the opportunity to build the new lodge, that was a whole new dream realized. We're doing this, we're making it happen, we're going to double the capacity, it's going to be a massive operation. We just bought 10 acres. We're putting this 6,400 square foot state-of-the-art lodge on it. Like, what is happening type deal, right? And it's all from setting that bar. And next thing you know, it just kind of happens without you even really being, without you even really realizing it, so to speak. And it's still unbelievable. And I haven't even lived through all the facets of that dream yet, really, because in all honesty, when we were out there for our spring snow goose season, the building went up, and it was a shell type deal when we left there at the end of our spring snow season. So I've been getting pictures and updates from the contractor and all that kind of stuff, and we're about 3 weeks away from turnkey on it, from being into it, being done. And
good for you.
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't even walked into it yet, right? I get pictures of the flooring and the cupboards going in and all that stuff. So, in about 3 weeks, we're about to walk into that whole new, the whole nother level of that dream. And then 1st of September, when those first clients show up and we get to stand on the front step and shake hands, that's just another facet of the dream, right? So she's pretty cool.
That is so cool. And how much of, you talk about setting the bar, setting goals. I I know a good friend of mine, Nick Kafka, started an operation here, which has been bought since he's moved on into another thing. But one of the things he talked about was, or used to talk about, still does, is that he could only control so many things as a guide, as an outfitter. And at the end of the day, he can't control the flights. He can't necessarily control the birds. Yeah, you scout your butt off. You work hard to make sure your clients have, the best opportunities in the world. You can't pull the trigger for them. You work as hard as you can. What are some of the things, I guess what I'm getting at is he talked about having an insurance plan.
Yeah.
And his wife is a huge part of that insurance plan because they did it together. They ran the operation together. And he talked about, you could go out and maybe the shooting that day wasn't great, but those guys come back and they have a wonderful hostess waiting for them back at the lodge with incredible home cooked meals.
Yeah.
How much of that I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. Was that a surprise to you? Because I think I know for me it's easy to get caught up in it's all about the birds when it may not necessarily. I've already said it. It's not necessarily that way.
Yeah, 100%. That became evident to me. All of the facets of it outside of the pile picture came real evident to me early on. I started my guiding career working for a guy that's all that mattered. Like, we're here to count birds. The boys stayed at a hotel. The restaurant was there. Go for dinner when you want. Order what you want off the menu. It's all included. But we're here to count the birds. That's the success level. Well, as the guide, I was in the field every day with guys, and they're like, "Oh, shooting was amazing. It's 8:30, and now I have 24 hours to burn before I get to do this again with nothing to do." Right?
Yeah.
So as the guide,
Right,
you're like, guys are complaining about this, and you're stuck in the field with them. Like, we can take our time driving back if you want. Like, I don't know. Like, I'll take a detour. Fun times, right?
Take you on a color tour or something.
Right, exactly.
Oh.
So that part of it became. I noticed the importance of it real early on. But as I've built this business, now that's number. I would say all of that back end stuff is probably. And I'll say this conservatively, in my opinion, the actual numbers and the bird killing aspect is probably about 5% of the importancy level, in my opinion, because guys are here to do that.
Right.
And, like I said to you on our phone call the other day, guys expect to pull the trigger and to see birds. That's what they've paid the money for. It shouldn't be like
Right.
You shot birds. Like, what are you complaining about? Well, of course they shot birds.
Yeah,
Why else are they here, right? But what we like to what we like to focus on, and what I like to do is, guys are at an all-inclusive trip, man. I don't care. There's no difference between walking into my lodge. There's no difference in walking into my lodge or walking into a all-inclusive resort in Mexico. You don't want to worry about anything. In my opinion, the bird hunting part of my all-inclusive is equivalent to the pool at an all-inclusive in Mexico. Well, there better be a pool where I'm staying, because that's what I'm here for, right? It's all the other stuff.
Right.
Are my full staff. Everybody, one of the biggest things that we get complimented on is everybody being so friendly. My team, I'm so fortunate that everybody loves what they do, and they welcome the guys in. It doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get the top end customer service. I've got 2 guys on my staff that are 10 out of 10 on cameras. So there's always great pictures. They're usually in the field for a handful of your hunts. So I mean, at the end of the day or the end of the trip, they're flipping guys high quality pictures of their dog, of them in a field, of them picking stuff up. You know, it's like
That's huge.
there's your memories.
That's
Then you
huge.
walk right. Then you walk
Yes,
back into the
yes.
lodge, and there's a in-house 5-star chef who's got, you know, dinner rolling, because when we leave the field or we start picking up and the guide goes to get the truck to pick up, he's giving the chef a call. Hey, listen, I've got an hour. We're good to go. Well, the chef starts stuff, and as soon as the guys come through, it's like, hey, boys, go ahead and get your boots off, get washed up. You got 10 minutes till grub time. It's not like everything's buffet style, sitting there, been there for 3 hours waiting for you, soggy. And, you know, so there's that aspect of it. It's dotting the I's and crossing the T's for the service end of stuff, that when you have that day where you show up to the field and the sun comes up and your entire roost jumps because a coyote just happened to walk across the end of it and jump them, that you can't control, well, guess what?
Right.
You have every other facet covered. So at least you might, you know, instead of taking a bullet square in the chest, it might just end up as a flesh wound type deal on the day because you've got everything else covered.
Right.
So that's how I mean, that's my
Right.
personal opinion on it.
No, you sold me. You sold me. If the border was open, I'd be there tomorrow.
But there you go. There you
if
go.
you had an opening. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and that's just it. That's just it. You know, there's a lot of people out there that can put you on piles. You know, that you can go build piles with. And if that's all you want, then I think, okay, great. There's lots of people that can do that. There's lots of places you can go do that. But, you know, when you look at the experience of it, what you just talked about that's, for me, that's what I would want out of it.
Yeah.
Because I've been on the hunts where, you know, DIY hunts growing up when you're especially when you're young and you're into it, and it's all about piles really when you're younger, or maybe starting out, and it's like, okay, we smashed, you know, 50 honkers this morning, and we're done by 8:00.
Yeah.
Now what? You know, now
Cool.
what do we do now?
Yeah, you probably have 3 decent memories that'll stick in your head from shooting those birds that fast that morning in a year from now. But
That's just it. That's just it. And honestly, the parts of the hunts like that stick in my brain the most are the upland bird hunts that we did during the day after the goose hunt or duck hunt in the morning. And it wasn't about the grouse and the woodcock we shot. It was about, you know, the time together in the afternoon, or maybe we went golfing, or we brought fishing stuff and we went fishing, or, you know, whatever. Those are the things that you remember. You hit on something about photography, and I think that is such a huge thing, and because in what we do with the big game and with Wingmen, we are constantly chasing photographs, constantly, because we know that that's a captured moment, that's a captured memory. And if guys are worried about in the field doing hunting and taking photographs, well, they're going to forget to take pictures, or the pictures are going to maybe not be great. But when you have a dedicated photographer there with high-end equipment that's taking photos, that hunt's eternal then. Those moments
100%.
are eternal.
100%. I've got 2 guys like that are both. I have 2 guys that are on the camera every day, and you know they'll come back, and it's always, you know, a little bit of a pissing match to be like, how many pictures did you take today? How many pictures did you take today? And it's like, I got this many on my camera, and it's like, okay, well, how many of them turned out? You know, then it's like, I got this, and then, you know, they start uploading stuff to Dropbox and emailing guys, and they got the laptop sitting there in the lodge at the end of the night, and guys are gathered around. They're like, oh, send me this one, send me this one, send me this one, and it's, you know, that's a locked in memory. That's not going anywhere. You know, we've got so many clients that have those guys will get back from scouting at night or whatever. Maybe one of them was out scouting, one of them was in the field that afternoon, and the guy that was out scouting will come back and he's like, oh yeah, I sat on this field, you boys are going to this one tomorrow, and he's got 50 pictures out of the 1,000 of them that he took that are all quality that we're going to upload to Dropbox to use on our social media, and he's starting to flip these guys' pictures. So now this client has a field of 100,000 snow geese covering square miles type deal, and we go the next morning and then he's got a pile picture of 80 of them that he's these guys are sitting in front of or whatever, and it's like, I can put this together, right? There's your story, there's your memory. You can't drive that hook any deeper in people at that point for wanting to come back.
No, and you build the stoke level with those scouting pictures as a I think that's genius, because as a client, there's especially if you've never been to some place before, there's a level of uncertainty about, okay, what's this going to be like? Yeah, they say there's birds, or yeah, they say there's this and that, but what's it really going to be like? Well, you got a dude coming back that's showing you pictures and video of what is there, what was there, and obviously you're going to preface that with, that coyote could run across that roost and blow the whole thing for us in the morning. But if all goes to plan, this is what you have to look forward to.
Yeah.
And guys aren't even going to sleep that night. They're going to be so jacked because they're seeing this stuff. Yeah, just building the experience even more is, I think it's amazing. Like I said, what you do, you've got it figured out. How many years did it take you to get it figured out?
Pretty much all of them. I wouldn't say that I've got it all figured out at this point, to be honest with you, man. I think if I sat here and said I had it figured out, there's only anywhere to go but backwards from here at this point, and I'm not ready to go backwards, to be honest with you. There's always something. There's little tiny details, like I've talked about my team that I've formed. My core dudes right now. I've got a right-hand man that lives in Saskatchewan, Braden. I mean, I wouldn't do it without him. I'd have to fly back and forth to Saskatchewan. I don't know how many times in a year to handle stuff. He's literally my right hand. I've got Jamie and Mitch that run the cameras. I've got Gavin and Scout, and they guide and everything too. They're multitaskers by all means. I got Gavin, who's just. He's guide extraordinaire. Everybody loves him. He's from the East Coast. He talks funny, so people find him humorous right away, and he is an absolute...
Gotta have a character on staff.
Oh, yeah, and he's an absolute assassin. I've got guys here in Ontario, Sean and Carter, that, know the land like the back of their hand, and, we all kind of sit down at the end of the year, and we're like, okay, what needs to be improved on? And it could be tiny, man. It could literally be like, it could tiny things. We don't toss anything off the table, and I do it for two reasons. One, as a business owner, because I want to know what we can improve on for the clients, and two, as an employer, because I know what it was like to work for guys where I'd be like, hey, I see this weakness that we have. If you maybe spent an extra, $100, we could have this gear. Or if we just kind of, on our switch out days, if we organized ourselves like this instead of this, it would make everybody's life easier. And those thoughts and ideas just, they fell on deaf ears, right? So when my boys sit there and they're like, oh, what about this, right, this, and this, they can be tiny details. Yep. Perfect. I can see where that would improve. So let's change it. And then it's the next year is an improvement. They might be tiny things that guests don't even notice have changed, but logistically they've made our life easier. They've made things more efficient. And it's at the end of the day improved on the trip. So that's a very long answer, I guess, for me to simply say it took a long time to learn all of this, but I don't think we've crossed all the bridges of learning and improving yet.
That was honestly the answer I was expecting and hoping that you were going to give.
Yeah.
It's like if you stop growing, you die. If you stop improving and stop building you die. As a teacher and a coach in my past life, I used to have a saying, nothing grows in a comfort zone.
Right.
That's a sterile environment. And if you're you're just sitting back going, I'm good. And you're not going to keep improving. You're going to stay there, or worse, backslide.
That's exactly it. And you just said something that I think really ties into it. A coach. I coach baseball in the summer. My young lad plays competitive ball. I'm involved with kids, right from the ages of 10, 11 up to 18, 19-year-olds. And, the biggest thing that I tell my young lad, he's a pitcher. He works all year round at pitching. And, the biggest thing that I've told him, and I tell all the kids that we're involved with, very fortunate to be involved with on the field, is you don't sit here and compare yourself to the other ones. Compare yourself to you, and that should be your drive. You don't have to be better than everybody else. Your goal is to be better than you were yesterday. And you're making improvements at that point, and you're eventually going to get to where you want to be. And I think that business is very much the same way. If I spent all my time cruising other people's websites and seeing what they were doing and trying to keep up with the Joneses, then all you're doing is following at that point where, I'm just we want to be better than we were yesterday or last year in this case. And that's the biggest improvements. That's how those biggest improvements are made.
Back to the sports analogies. Another one that I used to hear or still hear and I really liked was, basically along the lines of champions focus on winning and losers focus on champions.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. It's one of those things that it's like, yeah, you're looking at what you need to do to be the best that you can be. You're probably getting there, especially if you set that bar high. Yeah, it's cool, man. Like I said, I would love to come out and experience some of this, or come up and experience some of the stuff up there. But
would love to have you.
Someday it'll happen. Someday I'm looking at your, like I said, when Ramsey suggested you, I went and did some homework, and the first thing I did, pull up your webpage, and I'm sorting through stuff, looking at it, going, I've got a dad who's going to be 70 here pretty quick. And I'm looking at and he loves wing shooting. And I'm looking at this going, when that border opens up, I'm bringing Dad. We're coming up. We're coming up. That's going to be awesome. But
got to check that box off the list.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because I bring him out here and do he does DIY stuff with me, and we have some pretty phenomenal hunting at times, but it's cold, it's late, it's 20 below. Are we really going to go out and chase ducks this morning in that slushy river?
Yeah.
You'll be okay.
The shooting's fun, but all the extra work is the crappy part.
Man.
That get somebody else to do that crappy part for you.
Yeah. Well, it's and I don't require a lot of him, but honestly, he's, like I said, he doesn't stay warm as well as he used to, and I'd dress him up in the warmest Sitka stuff that I have and say, here we go. Honestly, if I didn't have that warm Sitka gear, it'd be a lot tougher to keep him in the field as long as we do.
100%.
There was one morning this year, I think it was like 4 degrees Fahrenheit. The river was blowing slush, and I said, we're going to go out. I said, we're going to sleep in. Birds aren't going to fly until noon anyway, but I said, it's still going to be cold. He sat there all afternoon, and he was warm. I had him in the Boreal series, and I was like,
that stuff is a savior in the later part of the season,
gosh.
Man. We hunt in Ontario here until our season goes to end of December, first week of January type deal. And I can't count how many times I've showed up to the field to kill honkers in the afternoon wearing that stuff. And everybody's like, oh, easy does it, Michelin man. And I'm like, we're going to see here in about 2 hours who's making fun of who here, boys. Because that stuff is
so
legit.
True. Yes, it is. It's the same out here. We did a hunt with Jim Sobir from Sitka a couple years ago now, 2 years ago. And it was that. It was the wind chill. I think ambient temp was 1, maybe 0. And wind chill, it's Wyoming. It's windy here.
Yeah.
And wind chill was stupid. I mean, it was well below 20 below. And we're all comfy.
Yep.
The only thing that suffered that day the geese suffered because we put it on them pretty good. But they didn't suffer actually. It was over pretty quick, pretty painless.
Yeah.
But
perfect.
But our camera guys, we had 2 camera guys along on that hunt, and we filmed the whole thing and took pictures. Their hands, because I don't care, running a camera for them it's really tough to do with any kind of glove on.
Yeah.
You just don't have the tactile control and the dexterity that you need. And they both got frostbite pretty bad on their hands.
I believe it. Those cameras literally turn to ice blocks too. You might as well be hanging onto a great big ice block.
That's just it. But we had a Yeti cooler, right? But we were hunting on layout blinds, and we had a Yeti cooler in our head, and great hide. It was a pick cornfield and lots of trash in it. Lots of stuff to cover up with, and we were right along the edge of a plowed up, chisel plowed section of it. Anyway, we were able to put that Yeti cooler behind the blinds and cover it with like a ghillie, like a leafy tarp type deal, and then just throw corn stubble all over it. Well, we used the cooler to keep the batteries warm.
Yeah.
It wasn't about keeping stuff cold. It was to keep stuff warm that day.
Camera gear.
From freezing.
That's hilarious.
We put camera gear in it with like heat packs.
Yeah.
And it worked. It kept things warm, but it was, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's the stuff that you do and the gear that makes it doable is, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes it doable day in and day out, right? I mean, the amount of gear that we go through after 100 and some odd days is, scary for most people.
Yeah, one of the things that you talk about on your website is that you're a firm believer in top quality gear, top quality equipment. And we just hit on it with the Sitka stuff, the Boreal series especially. It keeps you in the field. It keeps you hunting where... if you don't have it, can you gut it out and tough it out? Maybe, but it's going to
all you're thinking about is getting to the truck and not focusing on the hunt. And it goes, I mean, as much as we just talked about the Boreal series, and I don't mean to cut you off. You might be trying to go somewhere.
No.
But, you go to the other end of the spectrum. If you go to the other end of the spectrum to the, the Sitka early season stuff, I mean, you take those days in early September when it's, you're in the 70s, in the 80s, starting your hunting season. Well, that's awesome. Everybody's like, oh, shorts and flip-flops, right on. No, you will literally be eaten alive by mosquitoes if you have bearskin showing. So you put that early season stuff on. You might have your shorts and a T-shirt on, but you've got the early season base layer on, and now you don't have any bearskin, and everybody's getting crushed by mosquitoes, and you're, keeping them away from your face basically, and that's it because you're covered. Right. So I mean, that stuff to me is just as important of a tool as my late season Boreal stuff, really, at the end of the day. But it all comes down to gear.
You're right. Yeah, no, it does. And it's such a huge part of it. And I think back on, I don't know, I think you and I are probably pretty close in age. And I think back on some of the stuff that I wore growing up. And I'm like, I was one tough SOB.
Right.
Be able to
like,
do the
how
stuff
did I do that?
That I did.
Yeah. Because I wouldn't go do it now. There's no way. If somebody said you had to wear what you wore 10 years ago, I'd be like, it's good, thanks. I'm all right. I got lots of stories.
Let's do it.
You guys let me know how this one goes. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's do a throwback hunt. Nah, you can keep that.
Exactly. Sounds fun. Man. I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember early honker season in the UP. In upper Michigan, like I said, I lived right across the river from Sioux, Canada, from Sioux, Ontario, and we had an early, 15-day early goose, and my gosh, the mosquitoes would just
brutal.
Like you're talking, just eat you alive,
and,
and you're out there sweating to death because you had to. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's like I can either be sweaty and too hot, or I can be one big mosquito bite by the time this is all over.
100%.
You know,
Yeah.
be lightheaded because I lost 2 pints of blood.
Exactly.
No
yeah,
thanks.
They are brutal. But yeah, we do focus on the quality gear for the operation. There's no getting around that, because you have to have the quality gear to be able to make, opening morning as successful as closing day and all the way in between, in my opinion.
And I think part of the quality gear is, you talked about earlier about the team that you've put together.
Yeah.
And your team is, they all have, they're all individuals, and they have individual skill sets that make them who they are, but they probably all have something in common, and I'm betting it has to do with overall hunting ability, calling ability, being able to set a spread to get birds right in guys' faces. How'd you track those guys down, and what do you look for?
Straight up luck, man. I come into every single one of these guys by straight up luck. The
Luck or providence?
Well, yeah. I mean, 6 of one, half dozen of another. Really. I mean, the team that we've got has literally come together by, passion just ends up being drawn to passion, I guess, at the end of the day. I don't really know how to word it. I used to be part owner of a call company that we had up here. And Braden, for example, my right-hand man, we met through that. He reached out, hey, I want to rep your calls. They live here in Saskatchewan, blah, 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 blah. Got to know him that way. And we're pretty much the same human. Jamie met through the same avenue, and he was actually guiding for another operation out there at the time. Didn't like the circumstances he was in, so as we got to know each other, he was like, if you ever had a spot, I would really like to talk about coming to work for you. And
right.
Jamie might have the biggest heart of any human I've ever met. He is our hostess with the mostest. Everybody loves Jamie. He'll pick you up at the airport, and for the hour and a half drive to camp, by the time you get out of that truck at camp, you know everything about Jamie. You've been family with him forever. That's just how it goes.
Right.
Mitch and Gavin are both our young boys. I met Mitch on social media when he was like 12, 13 years old. And he was just this kid that would message and ask questions and do this. And, hey, I'm trying to learn this. How do I do this? How do I do that? And just, on and off conversations. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm looking for a guy to add to the team. And have you ever thought of doing this, kid? Oh my God, I've dreamed of it type deal. And, you come across guys that way. Gavin is buddies with Jamie because they come from the same town. You've got Dylan that's part of the team that is buddies with, that grew up with Braden. So, it's just, not only do they all have the skills like you mentioned, but, we're all on the same page. Like there's the same goal for everybody. Let's be serious. The guiding game can be a young man's game, and you might have like 2 to, I'm going to say 5 years of guys where, in my opinion, in my experience, I would say 9 out of 10 guys that are guides or have been guides in the waterfowl side are going to go one of 2 ways. They're going to be, I should say one of 3 ways. They're going to be lifelong guys that are just going to ride or die till the end, and they get bonus kickbacks and they just want to be the guide. Or they're going to be a guy that's going to do it for 2 to 5 years, and then they're going to be old enough to where they've met a woman, had a kid, can't leave home for 2-3 months anymore. I got to do something else. Or they're moving on to run their own operation. You've got one of those 3 options, in my opinion. And all the guys that are on our team, they call me boss man, and it bugs me because I'm just like, boys, we work together. You know what I mean? Like, I just pay the bills. We just work together. That's how it rolls, right?
Yeah.
So, just crazy luck, I guess, to have the right guys come along, really, at the end of the day.
That's awesome. Yeah. when you talk about those three things, those types of guys, when I was a teacher, I got into guiding fly fishermen. Living in Wyoming and around the West, it's kind of a thing. So it was a great way to combine my passion for fly fishing with the need to make a little extra coin and having a summertime, pretty much unlimited time in the summer to do that. And I learned real fast. That I was number two. Mm-hmm. I was, I still pull a handful of days a year, but man, am I thankful I'm not one of those row or die guys, fish or die guys like you mentioned. That's I take my day job. I kind of like this gig.
Yeah.
I like my kids. I like my wife. I like being home and seeing them, and I like to get a handful of trips every year and go, and especially with repeat clients. Like you said earlier, it's a friendship thing. I look forward to fishing, taking those guys fishing, because at the end of the day, I'm fishing too because I'm putting them on fish. If it was waterfowl hunting, I'm hunting too because I'm putting them on birds, and we go have fun.
It's as much of a trip for you as it is for them.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny when you said those three types of guys, I'm like, yep.
Yeah,
I've seen it on the other side in fly fishing, but it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. That I think that's, I've guided with a lot of guys. I've worked with a lot of guys in this industry, and that's just usually the way. Those are, in my opinion, the top three, how it rolls out. And, when you have the lifelong guys, myself, I fall into that category. I'm one of those lifelong guys, right? Like I'm gone from home for the month of April. I'm in Saskatchewan. Spring snows. September, October, I'm in Saskatchewan. And then when I come home, we have November and might as well call it half of December that I'm guiding here in Ontario. And as much as I'm home and sleep in my own bed every night, you want to know how much I'm not home during that time? Ask my wife, because she'll tell you. She'd rather me be in Saskatchewan because it's like you're home, but you're not home at the same time.
Yes.
So, really, at the end of the day, I get asked a lot, what do you do the rest of the year? Family, man. That's what I do the rest of the year. I do family, and I plan your trip, period. Because those months that I'm gone, I get zero family. So if I didn't set things up and structure them the right way, where, my other, let's call it 8-9 months of the year are focused on, fishing with my wife, sitting on the couch in front of a TV series with my wife, being at the ball field with my young lad. What's the sense of getting up and going to work every day if you don't have that family, right? Because they're the ones that sacrifice the most and put up with it while we're all gone. So those lifelong guys, there's usually a pretty heavy support group behind them at home that the rest of the year needs to be paid attention to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or they're just lone wolves that,
There's the odd one of those ones. Yep. There's the odd one of those ones.
Yeah. They do exist. They do exist. I was on a river in Montana last week, real famous trout stream. And this time of year, there's a specific hatch going on that attracts more fishermen than fish, probably. And I was watching the guides put in the morning and take out at the end of the day. And there was one old boy that probably was in his 60s. And I don't know his story, but I'll bet you if you sat down with him over a cold drink, at the end of the day, he could tell you stories. He just looked like one of those lifers,
Yeah.
And who knows? He could have been a day trader that made millions and decided to retread, Who knows? But
it could be. Odds are probably slim, but could be.
yeah, exactly. But it's just interesting, you sit back. It's like sitting in the airport watching people and guessing at what they do, But getting back to surrounding yourself with team members, with solid team members, because it's just, having a good team elevates your level of play, back to the sports analogies, right? But I'm sitting here looking at two dogs, Bat Dog and Major Pain, on your website.
Yep.
At the end of the day, the dogs are as big a part of this as we are, right?
Without a question, they are the ultimate support network. I mean, they save a lot of miles at the end of the day. There's always a lot of stories told about them. I don't know. I've been doing this a long time, man, and to go to a field without a dog, I mean, what are you really there for other than the pulling the trigger part at the end of the day? In my opinion, the dogs are that dog work is everything.
Well, I can't tell that you're proud of them because above your head on the shelf behind you
Yeah.
is a whole bunch of plaques and ribbons, and unless you're showing calves at the fair, I'm thinking
Yeah.
those are probably from dog competitions.
Those are from trials. Those are from trials. There's a lot more that aren't shown in that video in the camera behind me too. There's years worth of dog ribbons kicking around for different dogs that are still here and that aren't here for that matter.
Right.
I've been real lucky to have some really good ones, like really good ones. I would say even the one that I would have on kind of the bottom of my list as being one of my better ones. Any waterfowl hunter, anybody would be happy to have had him. So I've been real fortunate that way. I look at them as, I've got two of them. Like you said on my website, Bruce and Major. They both sleep in the bed every night with me and the wife. I mean, they are our kids as much as our kid is, for that matter. But I've always looked at my dog as being one of those puzzle pieces, as a top quality tool as well as part of the team, because, if I've got a dog in the field that breaks and messes up a flock, well, that's a downfall. So I mean, they've got to perform just as much as I do. So they're a family member, but man, they are an important tool at the same time.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. That there's two types. Well, to overgeneralize, maybe I think there's two types of dogs. There's dogs that make the hunt that much better and a great experience, and there's dogs that make the hunt worse. Where you can you might have shot a pile of birds, but if you had a dog that was awful and unruly and uncontrollable and whatever, you're probably going to remember that poor dog, and that behavior issues and whatever, almost more than you're going to remember the hunt from the day.
Without a question. But without a question,
Yeah.
and trust me, as a lifelong waterfowl guide, I've seen multiple of both kinds of those dogs.
It's shocked me on your going through stuff on your website that you can bring your own dog to your.
The way I see it,
that's a surprise.
Yeah. So that came from, like I mentioned earlier, my guiding days of sitting in the field, listening to the clients, like, oh, complain about this, complain about that, right? That came from that, where a lot of guys weren't able to bring their dog. So my rule on bringing your own dog, kind of really in a nutshell, comes down to, you know what? This is your trip. You're paying for it. I'm not paying for this. So why, if you want to pay for the trip and you want to bring your dog, man, bring your dog. But I'm going to have the conversation with you out of the gates that I have two different conversations. If it's a full group, say there's 6 guys that call and they book, and one guy's got a dog and everybody's on the same page, maybe they've hunted with the dog at home before, doing, hunts on their own and that kind of stuff. I still have the conversation. Hey, if your dog starts to ruin a hunt or anything else, then, I still reserve the right to be like, hey, that dog's got to go to the truck. We got stuff to do. We got other people
Right.
that are paying the same amount of money to do this. So we kind of have the preliminary conversation, because I've seen guys show up that have hunted with dogs together, like they're buddies at home, and all of a sudden one of the buddies is paying the same amount of money and that dog's ruining a hunt. Well, now somebody cares because they're paying a bill. They didn't just get up and buy coffees for everybody in the morning. And those two guys that hunt at home together that are buddies, they're quickly not becoming buddies in my blind type deal because of a dog. So I still kind of reserve the right. We have the conversations about that. But honestly, like, I don't think I'd be able to count on, both hands or less than both hands. How many times I've had to ask a guy to take a dog to the field because knowing that I have that conversation, knowing that the quote unquote warning has been put out there that, hey, if your dog ruins this is not on me, because trust me, if I'm watching your dog ruin it, I'm tucking those feathers away in my cap to be able to bring up in conversation when you turn to me and say, well, we didn't kill as many today as we should have, or the first day didn't go the way that it should have. I'm going to sit there and go, remember the 4 times your dog broke? So, but at the end of the day, that's my biggest thing. It's your trip. Bring your dog, because your dog is as much of a part of your trip and your hunting experience as mine is to me. So bring your dog. Ours get to hunt a lot. Mine get to hunt a lot. My guide's dogs get to hunt a lot. The day off isn't going to hurt them any. Have at her. So
it's almost, and in fact, I know helping Nick and Noah out here on the occasions that I have, it's almost a relief for their dogs to have a little help in the field, or to have a day off, and I know it's going to be for mine. Well, I just picked up a new pup a couple weeks ago, and one of Barton Ramsey's dogs.
Yes.
And my dog's old. He's 9 years old, and he's had lots of miles and lots of feathers in his mouth, and he just can't hack it, for multiple days anymore. He can still give me one awesome day. We had one day last year where I think he picked up 25 mallards out of it was a little backwater slough, but it was cold. It was cold. Yeah. And I tell you what, at the end of the day, he was pretty tired, and he slept the whole next day, stiff and sore. And
them old dogs are fun.
Yeah, man. It was funny talking to, when we went down and did the trip, and talking with Corey Wages from SOK Tanglefoot and with Barton, talking about Mackinac, that, Corey said it best. He's like, yeah, man, the hay's in the barn with that dog. I don't train him anymore. We throw some bumpers and we do a lot of trout fishing in the mountains together, and so he's in shape. Yeah. But training wise, he's got it.
Yeah, he's got it down. The pup that you got, did you get a male or a female?
I got a female, I got a male. It was kind of funny. I had a deposit down quite a while back, and my wife and I had a son, got pregnant, and had a little baby boy, and I called Barton. I said, dude, I can't do a puppy and an infant at the same time.
Yeah. I don't think any good man could. Yeah.
No, I mean, we could, but there's a difference between could and should,
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was great. He's like, yeah, man, I'll just hold your deposit. That's not a problem. And I think it's going to work out better that way anyway, because the litter that I got was a Cedar Fia litter. And I wanted a dog with big motor, lots of heart, but could be a family dog. Like you said, sleep on the bed at night, part of the family, and that's exactly what I ended up with so far.
That's awesome.
Named him Hondo, and he's great, man. Yeah, we just started place training last night, and I've only had him for 3 weeks, so it's just starting.
It's fresh,
rolling on things.
Yeah, that's a real fun time. Stage. Yeah, I love. As much as I don't like the puppy stage, I like the new dog stage. I'm about a year away from being due for a new one to start getting ready as well. And I like those young dogs. Gavin, my one guy, just picked up a puppy 2 weeks ago. So I mean, we've got a new one coming to camp this year. For that matter, I guess to be ready to really hunt in the spring. But I like that new dog stage, because as much as it's a pain in the butt, because you'll look at that dog and tell it to do something that you've told your old dog for years now, and that old dog's like, yeah, okay, dude, I got you, no problem. You just sit tight, I'll be right back. Where you tell this new dog to do it, and this new dog's like, you want me to chase that butterfly? Okay, cool, I'll do that. Nope, that's not what I said to do. But then you can watch that new dog. Right? But then you watch that new dog start to pick up on things, and you can see the light bulbs going off, and that dog
Yeah.
puts that puzzle piece together, and then the next puzzle piece, the next thing you know, they're blowing through puzzle pieces, and you're like, that's rewarding to watch happen. So it's a fun stage.
Yeah, it is, and we've been focused last week and the week before when I first got him home, just focused on, experiences and socialization and just the foundation,
Yeah.
and to watch him go through different things and do different stuff, like simple stuff. We went to up in the mountains last weekend, and there's a little creek to cross, and it's like not even ankle deep, just a trickle of water. Well,
Yeah.
you'd have thought that was like
The Great Wall of China
Niagara
for
River
him to get
or
across.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no kidding. And my old dog just bloop, right through it, and we're all going, and he's sitting on the other side whining and jumping up and down, and I'm like, come on, buddy, come on, and he figured it out. He figured out that, that's not that big a deal. But
Yeah.
all those first things, and that's gonna translate into, I'm not planning on hunting him next fall or this coming fall. This is just gonna be so little,
Yeah.
so young still. But I mean, I'll take him out on something that's easy and controlled. I don't want him around, chaos where,
Yeah.
A huge group of mallards comes in and there's guns going off and everybody's hooting and hollering. I don't want that, but, maybe me and Dad go out, and if we get a nice little calm water shoot where I got one little spot in particular I'm thinking of that is a little back channel. It's like knee deep,
Yeah.
and it's maybe not even that deep, to be honest. And if I just go by myself or just with him, and we can focus on the dog, and if the dog can pick up a bird or two, great. But
Introduction
I'm
is
not
key.
planning on a lot of. Yeah, exactly. I think back on what I've done with my old dogs, and I'm like, it's a miracle that they turned out the way they did.
Yeah.
As good as they did, because dang. I just look at the mistakes and think, how did they turn out to be half the dog that they did?
Well, and that's it. And I mean, I have had a handful of them, like I said, and the Bruce that's on the website is actually a nephew to my one that I had before him, who was the best dog I'll ever have, Iceman. I mean, I can't tell you how many. That dog ended up touching over 13,000 birds in his life, and he passed away at 8 years old. Like
Wow.
him and I did everything together. So I was used to this dog that, if we could see each other, I was handling him like no big deal. We were good to go. So then I pick up this Bruce dog, who's his nephew. Awesome bloodlines, crushes training. We get to September 1st, and the dog's 9 months old, and everybody's like, don't hunt him, don't hunt him, don't hunt him. Give him, till the spring. And I'm like, I got to get experience on this dog, and, I'm not walking out there. And I was a little stubborn on hunting him maybe early type deal. And that first morning we got out there, had 4 guys, and, I told the boys, listen, this is his first hunt ever, I'm going to hold him, all this stuff. And that first flock of early season honkers come in, and 4 guys cut like 9 geese out of it, right? And there's dead stuff flopping everywhere. And this dog is just like, what just happened type deal? Like, you've thrown 2 bumpers at a time for me for 6 months now. What is happening, right?
Yeah.
And
oh my gosh, no kidding.
But because the foundation was so strong to him, I mean, he handled it. Well, next thing you know, a week later, the dog it's like he was a 2-year-old dog. He'd seen everything and the experience and everything like that. And looking back on it, I might be like, well, maybe we should have waited a little bit. But at the same time, the experience that dog has is, he at the end of his first hunting season, he had just turned 1, and he probably had the experience of a 4-year-old dog. So it kind of goes both ways, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You got to watch how you introduce them to it, but at the same time, it's another sports analogy. You can be awesome in a batting cage, but until you see live pitching, you're not going to know. And that's kind of, if you don't put the dog in a game situation, you're not going to know he's not going to know what he's doing, right? But
yeah, I think you're right. I think building the foundational skills, of steadiness and lots of retrieve time and complex drills, so they've had to think through some stuff. And then being able to judge your dog too, to be able to be honest with yourself and go, this dog's ready for some stuff. I can throw some stuff at this dog and going, this dog is not ready, you know?
Yeah.
And I think with my very first one was a female, and I did the same thing. She was in the field by my side when she was tiny.
Yeah.
And was dragging geese around by the neck and, you know, pulled a honker that weighed as much as she did all the way back to the blind by the neck, you know.
Yeah.
And she's just this little tiny puppy. She was a beast. I mean, and she was absolutely 100% fearless. And like you said, by the time she was a year old, she was probably had the equivalent experience of a 3-year-old dog.
Right.
And she only lived to be 3 years old. And she got hit by a car. I lost her to a car, unfortunately.
Terrible.
That dog retrieved thousands of birds in that time.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, wow. Mackinac, where he is now, I hunted him on upland birds, on pheasants a lot, because that's kind of what I had the most of available to me. And it was one-on-one. And that's exactly what he needed, because he's a little bit more cautious. He'll think through a situation, like literally sit there and look and go, okay. And I watch him retrieve out of our rivers down here, and he's put the puzzle pieces together to the point where if I would have forced that stuff on him when he was little, I probably would have ruined him.
For sure.
But letting him figure some stuff out on his own. He's a hell of a bird, hell of a gun dog.
Yeah.
I had to figure that stuff out, where I had to be a little softer with him and let him get himself comfortable. And then once he was comfortable in a situation, there was nothing he can't do, you know. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, but I agree with you, man. If I can't, even somebody else's dog, if there's not a dog there, it takes a lot of the shine off stuff for me.
Nobody has ever taken. Agreed entirely. Nobody has ever taken an awesome, memorable magazine cover photo picture of a guide running back to the blind with an armful of birds, looking desperate as all hell to be back in the blind. It's never been taken because it's not something somebody wants to see. They want to see a dog bringing one at a time back.
And any person that's done that goes, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to run 100-yard sprints with 50 pounds in each hand.
No, the first time you run out to pick up that honker that you think is stone dead, next thing you know, you're running hot laps in the field trying to catch the cripple. You're done with it. Get a dog, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, man. Oh, we get some sailors, you know, because we hunt them late, and those late season birds are tough, man. They got lots of feathers, lots of fat, and you don't always kill them outright. You know, you do if you break a wing and you get one that sails or two that sail, and oh my gosh, pretty soon you're looking at a half-mile jaunt across the field to where that bird went down, and then you got to chase it around. And why are you so tired at the end of a day of bird hunting? You didn't do anything. You sat in the blind. No, not quite.
Exactly. I do not have a gym membership. I do not want to run a mile to pick up a goose. It's simple. All those guys are like, oh, we'll get that one with the truck later. We're going to get this one in about 45 seconds from now. Watch this little four-legged thing go. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I remember Mac did a retrieve here for us. We had a sailor, and it went a long ways. It was a big, big field we were hunting, and had some guys that the guy didn't have a dog. He does now. But at the time, he just started out, and he didn't have his own dog, and had clients that had never hunted around a dog. And I was just there to help with the dog, basically, and do some filming. And there's one of those that Alan starts off out across the field, and I said, wait, dude, I'll send Mac. And lined him up and sent him, and he could see the bird flapping around out there. And this thing is a long ways away. And he ran and ran and ran and ran and ran. Of course, then he gets close. The bird starts trying to get away. Well, it could get about 2 feet off the ground. And that was all it could get. And he snatched it right out of the air. It was so far away that even on camera, if zoomed in, you can't really tell what's going on.
Yeah.
But all those clients and that guide were like, oh my gosh, that was incredible to, number one, to watch, and number two, Alan didn't have to run down there and try to get close to that bird, and yeah.
Right, which is an awesome memory.
So much to the hunt.
Yeah, so much to the hunt.
Much to the hunt. 100%.
Agreed entirely.
100%. But, well, what are your birds looking like this year?
We're looking good. There's areas that we would have liked to see some more rain in, to have some water. But then we've got areas that, have had lots of rain. So, I mean, we're looking good. We're in a great part of the flyway. We have everything that rolls through there. Where we are in Saskatchewan specifically, literally everything rolls through there. It's where the main part of the spec migration from Saskatchewan and Alberta kind of joined together before heading down south. So we've always got a ton of specs. There's lots of ducks around right now, which is good. And then, the small Canadas, the big Canadas, the snows and the cranes, they're always there. And realistically, I mean, we'll go back to where we started in this podcast, that whole border situation. There's just so many damn birds because the harvest has been down. I mean, so it's, the bird numbers haven't really been an issue. Every year you have the same things, the water. Is there going to be water around to hold them? How long will they stay for? But that also comes back to another part of the podcast that we touched on, the controllables and the uncontrollables. I can't control those things, so I'm not going to lose sleep over what that part looks like in 3 months from now. But things are looking good. There's no getting around that. We had piles of water around and piles of snows around in our spring snow goose season, so I expect very much the same for the fall.
No, I hope so. I hope that it rolls through, and I hope we can get Americans across that border this fall for you. And yeah, man, I'm definitely I have added Apex Waterfowling to the bucket list with the old man. So yeah, one of those deals where just like I said, visiting with you and just everything that you talk about, I could tell you guys run a first-rate operation, and that anybody that comes your way is going to be taken care of, and just have, like I said, building memories and have stories to tell.
I appreciate that. That's what it's all about. Yep, it absolutely is.
Cool. Well, Ryan, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. We're an hour and 15 minutes in, and we'll have you back. Let's have you back on at the end of the fall and do a recap for your fall season.
I would love to. Pleasure's been all mine.
Cool. Well, I try to remember to always ask a question of my guests at the end. If you could only hunt one bird one way for the rest of your life, it's all you could do. You had to pick. What's it going to be?
Ducks in a dry field, without a question.
Yeah.
It just doesn't get old. There's nothing about it that gets old.
There's something about watching those things work to spinners in a dry field that is just
doesn't matter if it's a single or if it's a wad of 300 of them racing each other. They're just they do it. They're fun. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's. I mean, it might sound boring to a lot of people, but
not me. Not
me. The action level never is. She's always cranked to 10 on those things. So that would be what I'd probably have to go with.
Yeah, they do it so hard. It's the difference between ducks on water and ducks in a dry field when you're where they want to be it's night and day. It's like, is this even the same animal?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I would say that's the one thing that everybody that comes and hunts with us, if they've never done it before, it's just like you can just watch their mind get blown. And then the guys that have been coming for years, they're the ones that are like, whatever, like the morning hunt was fun, that's sweet, but let's go shoot our ducks in the afternoon, like I can't wait type deal. So it's just like it never gets old.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I'm on the same page with you there, man. And we are blessed down here. We get to do quite a bit of that, late season. That's our mallards are in corn or barley, and it's a good time.
Yeah,
so.
It sure is.
Well, thank you again, sir. Have a great day, and I'll look forward to talking to you later this fall.
Yeah, you too. Thank you, sir.